come back to LA and I make the toughest decision I've ever made in my whole career, which to leave Ozzy, one of the biggest bands in the world, and they took great care of me for the complete unknown, which was Quiet Riot. But I knew that I got the joy of making music again.
Legendary bass player Rudy Sarzo takes us behind the scenes, sharing incredible stories about the rise of Quiet Riot, his time playing with Randy Rhoads, and of course, Ozzy Osbourne as well. From the glitz of the Sunset Strip to the groundbreaking success of Metal Health, this is an interview you don't want to miss. I'm Paul Stevenson from VRP Rocks, and this is Rudy Sarzo.
In 1977, I went to this club and I saw Quiet Riot perform, and I was very impressed. By then, I had been touring the club circuit in the United States for about 2 years now, and I had seen just every up and coming band, and I thought that Quiet Riot had something that the other bands didn't have. They had a vision. A lot of bands, their vision was to be big in the club scene. Quiet Riot's vision that their impression on me was that they were already an arena band that was playing in a club. And I was very impressed with everything, especially Randy Rhoads and the fan base that they had created. It's very hard in a club circuit to create a fan base, because usually in a bar, the club, the band was the jukebox. And the people went there just to hook up, basically. So, if you, like the reason why my brother and I left Miami was because the bar scene became more of a disco scene. So we had to play disco, and we were not disco consciousness minded musicians. We wanted to rock, and so that's why we left. But once you got to LA, it was if you wanted to really be considered as a serious musician by the industry in Los Angeles, you could not be in a top 40 band. You had to write and record and make demos of original music, and that was it. Which meant getting some kind of job in the daytime, and then at night that's devoted to rehearsal if you have a local band, and most definitely networking, going to places like the Rainbow, the Sunset Strip, So when I saw Quiet Riot performing at the Starwood, I bumped into Kevin after they finished their set. There he was walking around the club, and went up to him and basically, I had no idea or qualms about or drive to actually wanting to join the band. These guys, because I have my own band at the time, and and these guys, they seem like they're together, they're a group. Things are tight. And anyways, like I mentioned, I was living with the band that I was in, so I wasn't about to break my dedication to them, because we have moved from out of state to come to Los Angeles, so there was a lot of loyalty involved in that. And these were my brothers, my friends. And so I just told him, hey, I've been around. My name is Rudy. I've been touring the whole country, and you guys are very unique. Just keep doing what you're doing. And that was it. A year later, I was out of town. I was in Jersey when this happened. The first bass player in the band, Kelly Garney, he was out. He wrote the reason why he wrote about it in the book, so he was out of the band, and they were looking for a bass player. I mean, they tried everybody in town, but they were looking for specifically somebody that played with their fingers, more of a Greg Ridley or John Deacon style of bass playing, a little more R&B, more soulful, and that's where I came from, playing in Florida.
And it was a really exciting band at that point, wasn't it? In the kind of late 70s, and it was spoken about at the same time as likes of Van Halen before they got their deal, and they're really two up and coming flash bands. But Randy Rhoads, he left the band, didn't he? And he went off to Ozzy, and then a few years later, you joined him with Ozzy, didn't you? And it was at this point that it was absolutely crazy for Ozzy, especially his career rejuvenated. Blizzard of Ozz was massive, wasn't it? So what was it like joining that band at that time for you?
Yeah, I mean, the only reason why Randy left Quiet Riot was because actually his mom told him, listen, if you don't take this opportunity right now, it might never happen again. And you just wind up being, you know, stuck in LA, because what was happening in Los Angeles at the time is no no traditional rock bands, meaning, like what had happened before,
Yeah.
like the glam rock bands, they were not getting signed. As a matter of fact, those glam rock bands, like let's say Queen, they were like, they were going in different directions musically. A lot of bands were because of new wave and punk, you know. And so we hit a wall. Record companies just didn't care about us. They called us dinosaurs. So it was just a career decision. It wasn't because of any personal conflicts with anybody in the band at all, not at all. And so then, so Randy left and he joined Ozzy. And meanwhile, Kevin DuBrow put his own band together because at that time, Quiet Riot, the name, it was not being used. There was no Quiet Riot. It was DuBrow. And as a matter of fact, it did not become Quiet Riot until I came back in the group. And Kevin said, okay, now we got two guys from Quiet Riot. Let's call it Quiet Riot. So, yeah. And the reason why I did it was because once Randy passed away, I lost that Quiet Riot musical integrity that Randy was the architect of, the catalyst for it. I lost that in when he died, and I just lost the joy of making music, and I needed to find it again. I needed to find my home, and I get a phone call from Kevin right before I was about to leave LA, my home, to go and record the live Speak of the Devil record, the Black Sabbath re-recordings of the Ozzy era with Ozzy and Brad Gillis and Tommy Aldridge. And I get a phone call from Kevin and say, hey, we're in the studio for a possible record deal. How would you like to come on down and record on Thunderbird, which is a song that he wrote for Randy when Randy left left Quiet Riot to join Ozzy. And so I said, sure. So I came down, and there's Frankie, who I have been playing with him since 1972. This is 1982. So for 10 years, Frankie and we have been waiting for this moment that we're actually in the studio recording Thunderbird. And then, of course, you got Kevin, who I played with him in the original Quiet Riot, and then I played with him in DuBrow. I lived with him, and I knew, most of the music that wound up on Metal Health because that was written during the DuBrow period. So I just went there to do one song, and I stayed for 4 songs because we tracked really fast because I knew the songs already from playing in DuBrow and Quiet Riot. The second song that I tracked was Slick Black Cadillac, which goes back to the Randy era of Quiet Riot, and then a couple of DuBrow songs. Let's Get Crazy and Love's a Bitch. And by the time I left the session, I was still a member of Ozzy, but I have recorded 4 songs, that wound up on the record. And so I go to New York a couple of days later, do the record with Ozzy, Speak of the Devil. Then I come back to LA and I make the toughest decision I've ever made in my whole career, which to leave Ozzy, one of the biggest bands in the world, and they took great care of me. Sharon and Ozzy were wonderful with me for The Complete Unknown, which was Quiet Riot. But I knew that I got the joy of making music again.
At that point, Metal Health became absolutely massive. What was it? The first metal album to be #1 in the United States, multi-platinum there, and in Canada as well. And that sort of thing, it kind of blew up, didn't it? So what do you think it was about that record and that time? It just seemed to click and everything kind of went perfectly for it.
Yeah, definitely MTV, an era opened up. I mean, all of a sudden, and MTV did not have enough content, not enough video from anybody. Those bands were not, it wasn't part of the budget. And our first video was for Metal Health, and that cost $10,000 to make. And then the next one, by then we had been on tour for a while. That cost about $40,000 to make, which was for Come on Feel the Noise. And that's the one that really broke
Yeah.
the band, you know. Uh, yeah, I mean, we were getting played every half hour, which is more airplay than if you were on top 40 radio. Well, the only problem is that there were not too many subscriptions of MTV yet. But what started happening is outlets, like if you go to the mall, stores will be playing MTV on
Yes.
their screens. And that gives exposure. And then, you know, bars, you know, like sports bars that had TVs would tune into MTV. So that really helped out a lot. Clubs did. And so the next for the next record, Condition Critical, Mama World Crazy Now, that was $250,000. And I gotta add, even though the record company puts up the money, it was recoupable.
Yeah.
So the band always wound up
Respect from
paying for
you.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And you
yeah.
mentioned Condition Critical and Mama Are Crazy Now and Come On Feel the Noise and things like that. So was Kevin, was the band, were you all fans of kind of that 70s British glam kind of movement? Obviously Slade and T-Rex and Sweet and all that sort of stuff. Were you guys fans of that kind of music?
Yes, and there were certain bands that stood out. You know, Quiet Riot. That's what the Randy Rhoads version of Quiet Riot was. It was a Sunset Strip version of glam rock.
Yeah.
You know, and even before I got to LA, you know, that's why we had the collective consciousness. I happened to be in Miami, but I was having the same influences while I was in Florida, and then later on traveling in the Midwest. My consciousness was the same as Kevin and Randy, who were in Los Angeles. So when we got together, it was like,
Click. Yeah.
okay, we're of one mind, thinking about what we like, our musical tastes, you know. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was, to me, the that glam metal scene was as influential culturally and socially as the British invasion.